All right, you bastards, strap in, because we're going balls deep into the tech that spawned this whole digital shit show we call modern life.
You mean the OG iPhone?
Yeah, that prehistoric beast. You wouldn't believe the impact that brick had.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Seriously, though.
It basically birthed this whole smartphone craze.
Exactly.
And get this, even before it was released, 6 out of 10 Americans knew about it.
Really?
That's like insane hype. Imagine that shit.
No kidding. I mean, Apple and Singular.
Or AT&T as we know them
Yeah,
now.
right? They were like shady drug dealers or something.
What do you mean?
Dropping $150 million on this whole secret project.
The secrecy.
Why all the cloak and dagger bullshit?
Well, Steve Jobs, you know.
That control freak.
Yeah, he wanted total control over everything.
Makes sense, I guess.
He was obsessed with this design by a committee thing.
Oh, yeah?
Like what supposedly happened with the Motorola ROKR E1.
The ROKR.
Yeah.
That thing was a total flop.
Right, and Jobs, he wasn't going to let that happen to his precious iPhone.
Smart move, I guess. Totally. Speaking of Jobs being a control freak, remember the whole glass screen fiasco?
Oh.
The dude flipped out and demanded a glass screen.
At the last minute.
Right, because his keys scratched the plastic prototype.
Can you believe that?
What a drama queen.
That last-minute hissy fit sent shockwaves through the entire industry.
I bet.
Foxconn, the manufacturer, had to scramble.
Those poor bastards.
They had to build a whole new wing in their Shenzhen factory just to meet his demands.
Talk about pressure.
Yeah, imagine being those guys.
But hey, that's what happens when you're dealing with a control freak like Jobs.
True, true.
He was probably breathing down their necks the whole time.
Probably right.
All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room.
What's that?
That pathetic 2.5G EDGE network.
Oh, yeah.
It was slower than a turtle on tranquilizers.
I know, it's crazy looking back.
Why the hell did people wait in line for days to get this thing?
Well, because even with all its flaws.
What flaws?
Well, the EDGE network being one.
Okay, fair enough.
But the original iPhone, it was a revelation.
A revelation.
Seriously, it was the first truly usable multi-touch screen.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Right. The interface was revolutionary, and it was a commercial success like no other.
Millions of units sold.
As millions. It was the hottest gadget on the planet.
But who was buying this thing?
What do you mean?
It wasn't like the BlackBerry. That was the go-to for all the business pros.
Yeah, you're right.
So who was buying the iPhone?
I think it was more of a mainstream hit.
Okay.
It appealed to, you know, everyday people who wanted a cool and easy-to-use device.
All right, I can see that.
Yeah.
But then came the App Store.
Ah, the App Store.
And that blew the whole fucking market wide open.
It's a game changer.
Suddenly, everyone and their grandma was developing apps.
Yeah.
And the iPhone became, like, essential.
Basically.
It's hard to imagine a time when we didn't have apps for everything.
The App Store created this massive ecosystem of developers and users. It turned the iPhone from a cool gadget into a necessity, like you said, essential.
So let's talk about the phone itself.
Right.
It had that sleek aluminum back, 2MP camera, a single speaker.
Yeah.
It's crazy how far we've come since then.
It's ancient history.
Today's phones make the OG iPhone look like a goddamn relic.
Speaking of relics, did you know that the processor was actually underclocked?
Why?
To extend battery life. Imagine that.
Seriously.
And get this. The first software update.
Yeah.
They introduced the iTunes Store app. Can you believe that shit?
Wait, so you're telling me people couldn't even buy music on their iPhones when they first came out?
Nope.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
But yeah, the software revolution's a whole other story.
It is?
From iPhone OS 1 to 3, it was a wild ride.
Totally.
They added the App Store, copy and paste, all this stuff we take for granted now.
It's crazy to think about.
Yeah, can you believe copy and paste wasn't even a thing on the first iPhone?
It's like, what were they thinking?
Right. What a pain in the ass that must have been. So let's dive into the software a bit more.
Okay. Sounds good.
What was the first version of the iPhone OS like?
Well, iPhone OS 1, as they called it back then,
Yeah.
it was pretty bare bones compared to what we have now.
Makes sense.
But it did have some cool features.
Like what?
Like visual voicemail.
Visual voicemail. What the hell is that?
It was pretty groundbreaking at the time.
Really?
Yeah, you could see your voicemails listed out on the screen and choose which one to listen to.
Huh. That's actually pretty cool.
Right.
And of course you had the whole multi-touch thing.
Oh, yeah, the gestures.
Swiping, pinching, zooming. It was like magic back then.
It was a total revelation.
It's funny, thinking back to trying to explain that stuff to people who had never seen an iPhone.
I know, right?
It's like trying to describe a color they'd never seen before.
Totally.
But besides the touch stuff, it had all the basics.
Like what?
Email, Safari for browsing,
Yeah.
texting,
Yeah.
though no MMS. Can you believe that?
No MMS. Really?
Seriously. I guess priorities were different back then.
Yeah, you had to use email or something if you wanted to send pictures.
What a pain.
I know, right?
But you also had the iPod app, right?
Yeah, for music and videos.
And a dedicated YouTube app.
Uh-huh.
And Maps, powered by Google.
Yeah.
So it was like a mini computer in your pocket.
In a way, yeah.
But without all the bells and whistles we're used to now.
Exactly.
And here's the kicker. A lot of the features we consider essential today.
Yeah.
Like apps, copy and paste,
Mm-hmm.
even MMS.
Right.
They weren't there at launch.
Crazy, right?
Wait, seriously, no apps? So the app store that Jobs was raving about?
Yeah.
It was just a pipe dream.
Well, not exactly. The App Store came later with iPhone OS 2.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, initially there were no third-party apps.
So what did people do?
They were jailbreaking their phones like crazy.
Jailbreaking? What the hell is that?
Basically, you're hacking your phone to bypass Apple's restrictions.
Interesting.
So you can install custom software or features.
Oh.
Yeah, people were doing it just to get things like copy and paste.
Or to change the wallpaper.
Seriously, even that.
So Apple was basically playing catch-up with a bunch of hackers.
In a way, yeah.
That's hilarious.
But they were also laying the groundwork for something huge.
Yeah.
When iPhone OS 2 launched with the iPhone 3G, it brought the App Store with it.
And that changed everything.
Completely.
So that's when the app craze really exploded.
Exactly.
It's wild to think it all started with a bunch of hackers tinkering in their basements.
It's a pretty amazing story.
It really is.
The App Store was like the Wild West of software.
Yeah.
You could download anything you could imagine. Games, productivity tools, social media apps.
I'm sure Apple took a nice cut of all those app sales.
Oh, you bet they did. And they still do.
Of course they do.
But to be fair, they created the platform that allowed developers to build empires.
Okay, true.
And for users to have access to this universe of apps.
All right, let's fast forward a bit.
Sounds good.
What about iPhone OS 3? Any major changes there?
Well, one of the biggest was copy and paste, finally.
You're kidding.
I'm serious. It's wild to think that something so basic wasn't even available in the first 2 generations of the iPhone.
Yeah, can you imagine having to retype entire messages or emails because you couldn't copy and paste?
What a nightmare.
Totally. But what else did iPhone OS 3 bring to the table?
Well, they also introduced Spotlight Search for the home screen.
Nice.
And some new features for YouTube.
Okay, not bad.
It was a solid upgrade overall, though not all features were available on the original iPhone, so some people were still left out in the cold.
Speaking of features,
Yeah.
did we finally get MMS with iPhone OS 3?
Funny you should ask. MMS finally arrived with iPhone OS 3.
Which is serious. But it wasn't exactly what people were expecting.
Oh, yeah.
It was a bit of a letdown for some.
Oh, hey, at least you could finally send those multimedia messages.
Right.
So iPhone OS 3, that was the last hurrah for the OG iPhone, right? Well, I got one more update. iPhone OS 3.1.3.
And then what?
Curtains for the granddaddy of smartphones.
So you're saying the OG iPhone is like that old record player in your grandma's attic?
Pretty much.
Cool to look at, but not really usable anymore.
Yeah, that about sums it up.
Well, that's progress for you.
It is what it is.
It's kind of sad, though, like saying goodbye to an old friend.
It is a bit nostalgic thinking back to those early days.
Yeah.
But you got to remember, the original iPhone wasn't just a phone.
Right.
It was a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
It changed the way we communicate, the way we consume media, the way we live our lives.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It really was a game changer.
Totally.
But all good things must come to an end.
That's the truth. Huh?
So what's next on our deep dive into the original iPhone?
Well, next we can take a look at the legacy of the original iPhone. It may be obsolete now, but its impact on the tech world is undeniable.
All right, sounds good. Let's do it.
All right, so we were talking about the legacy of the original iPhone.
Yeah, that little gadget that basically turned the world on its head.
It may be gathering dust in a museum somewhere, but its impact.
Still being felt today.
Absolutely.
But what was so revolutionary about it? I mean, it was slow, it had limited features.
It's not about the individual specs.
Okay.
It's about the whole package.
Right.
The iPhone was the first device to really nail that combination.
Right.
A user-friendly interface,
Okay.
a responsive touchscreen,
Okay.
and a sleek design.
I'll give it that.
It was intuitive, it was fun to use, and it looked damn good.
Right.
That's what made it a game changer.
Okay, I get the whole user experience thing.
Yeah.
But wasn't the App Store the real turning point?
Absolutely. The App Store, that was a stroke of genius.
It really was.
It created this whole new ecosystem where developers could create and sell apps directly to users. Turn the iPhone into a platform, a gateway to a world of possibilities.
And let's be honest, Apple, those sneaky bastards.
What do you mean?
They took a cut of every sale.
Well, yeah.
They built an empire off the backs of those app developers.
They did provide the platform, though.
Okay.
The infrastructure, the marketing muscle.
Sure.
They took a risk, and it paid off big time.
No doubt about that.
But it wasn't just about the money.
Okay.
The App Store, it democratized software development.
In what way?
It gave anyone with an idea and some coding skills the opportunity to reach a global audience.
Yeah, and it created a whole new generation of app addicts.
That's the dark side, I suppose.
Glued to our screens, scrolling through endless feeds of bullshit.
Yeah, that's the downside.
But hey, we're connected now, right?
That's true.
I mean, the iPhone gave us social media, instant messaging, video calls.
It shrunk the world for better or worse.
Let's not get all philosophical here.
Right.
We're talking about a phone, not the meaning of life.
Okay, fair enough.
What about the actual hardware?
Yeah.
What were some of the design choices that made it stand out?
Well, for starters, there was that decision to go with a glass screen.
That was a bold move back then.
It was. Glass was considered fragile, expensive.
Most phones still use plastic screens.
Right.
But Jobs, he was obsessed with that glass screen.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that story about how he demanded the change at the last minute?
Because he scratched the plastic prototype with his keys.
Yeah. What a diva.
It's a legendary story.
Whether it's true or not.
That decision to go with glass, it was crucial.
Yeah.
It gave the iPhone that premium look and feel.
I'll give it that.
And made the touchscreen more responsive.
And then there was that aluminum back.
That iconic aluminum back.
That gave the phone a solid, substantial feel.
It wasn't like those flimsy plastic phones that everyone else was making.
Yeah, the iPhone felt like a piece of jewelry.
Not just a gadget.
And it was designed to be held.
To be interacted with.
That multi-touch screen wasn't just a gimmick.
No, it was an integral part of the user experience.
Yeah, those swipes and pinches.
They felt so natural, so intuitive.
It's crazy to think that nobody had done it before.
I know, right?
The iPhone also had that single button on the front.
Yeah.
It was radical simplification compared to the cluttered keypads of other phones.
It was a statement. This is a new kind of device.
A new way of interacting with technology.
Exactly.
And let's not forget about the software.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't just the apps.
Right.
It was the whole operating system.
It was designed to be simple, elegant, easy to use.
My grandma could figure it out.
iPhone OS, as it was called back then.
Yeah.
That was a major departure from other mobile operating systems.
How so?
It was built from the ground up for a touchscreen interface.
Makes sense.
It was fluid, it was responsive, it was visually appealing.
It was late years ahead of its time.
And it was constantly evolving.
Oh, yeah.
Apple kept adding new features, new apps, new ways to use the iPhone.
Right.
They were always pushing the boundaries.
Always trying to stay ahead of the curve.
That's another key part of the iPhone's legacy.
What's that?
It's relentless innovation.
Okay.
Apple never rested on its laurels. They kept iterating, refining, improving.
So that's why they've remained the dominant smartphone for so long.
Exactly.
But it wasn't all sunshine and roses, was it?
What do you mean?
The original iPhone had its fair share of problems.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that 2.5G EDGE network.
It was a joke.
It really was.
The original iPhone was far from perfect.
In what way?
It was slow. It had limited storage. The battery life wasn't great.
Yeah.
It was a first-generation device.
Right.
Proof of concept.
I see.
But despite its limitations,
Yeah.
it captured the imagination of the world.
It's funny to think that people were willing to put up with all those limitations.
I know, right?
Just to be part of the iPhone revolution.
It was a cultural phenomenon.
We've come a long way since then.
No doubt.
Our phones are faster, they have more features, they can do practically anything.
It all started with that clunky little brick with a glass screen.
And that's the thing about innovation, right?
What's that?
It's an iterative process.
Exactly.
You start with an idea, you build a prototype.
You refine it, you improve it.
The original iPhone, it may be obsolete now.
Well, it laid the foundation for everything that came after.
It changed the way we communicate, the way we consume information, the way we live our lives.
It really did.
So where do we go from here?
What do you mean?
What's the next big thing in the world of smartphones?
That's the million-dollar question.
It really is.
Some people say it's foldable phones.
Foldable phones? Seriously?
Yeah, others say augmented reality.
Interesting.
Still others say artificial intelligence.
Okay.
Truth is, nobody knows for sure.
Yeah.
But one thing is certain. The smartphone revolution,
Yeah.
it's far from over.
Before we get too lost in the future, let's take a step back and appreciate the OG iPhone for what it was.
Okay.
A flawed but brilliant device that changed the world.
I'll drink to that.
Cheers to that. All right, so we've spent a good chunk of time jacking off the OG iPhone like it's some kind of technological god.
Yeah.
But let's get real. What about all this shit that it got wrong?
Oh, man, where do we even begin?
I mean, for starters.
That EDG network.
Ugh, don't remind me.
It was slower than a sloth on a Sunday afternoon.
Seriously, that thing was a joke.
And the battery life.
Yeah, what about it?
You were lucky to get, like, a few hours out of it.
Before it died.
Exactly.
I remember you practically had to delete your entire photo library just to download a new app.
The storage was pathetic.
And speaking of apps, the original iPhone didn't even have copy and paste.
Can you imagine that?
Having to retype entire paragraphs because you couldn't just copy and paste.
What a pain in the ass.
It's crazy how far we've come.
It really is.
Our phones are practically mini supercomputers now.
Compared to that clunky old iPhone.
But hey, that's technological evolution, right?
Exactly.
Each generation builds on the successes and failures of the one before it. So what were some of the biggest lessons learned from the OG iPhone?
Well, I think one of the biggest was the importance of a strong app ecosystem.
The App Store was a game changer.
It was. It showed everybody that the real power of a smartphone, it's in the software.
Not just the hardware.
Exactly. And let's be honest, Apple.
Those greedy bastards.
They were printing money with the App Store.
And everybody else wanted a piece of the pie.
Of course.
No doubt.
Well, another key takeaway was the need for speed.
That ADGE network was a major bottleneck.
It was. It was clear that future smartphones, they would need faster, more reliable connectivity.
Because nobody wants to wait 5 minutes for a web page to load.
Exactly. We're all addicted to instant gratification these days.
What else? What else did they learn?
Battery life, of course.
Oh, yeah. That was a big one.
People wanted phones that could last all day.
Not just a few hours.
That led to a lot of innovation in battery technology and power management.
So basically, the OG iPhone was like a giant experiment.
Yeah, a learning experience for the entire tech industry.
Interesting. So what about the future of smartphones?
What about...
Where do we go from here? Are we going to hit a plateau?
I don't know.
Or are there still, like, major innovations on the horizon?
That's a tough question. I mean, we've come so far in such a short time.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine what the next big leap will be.
True.
But I think we're going to see a continued focus on AI.
Artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and augmented reality. Maybe even foldable screens?
Foldable screens. Seriously.
I know, right?
Those things look like they're going to break the second you fold them.
I know, but technology is always evolving.
Fair enough.
I wouldn't be surprised if foldable phones become the norm in a few years.
We'll have to wait and see.
We will.
One thing's for sure, the smartphone revolution is far from over.
And who knows what crazy shit they'll come up with next.
All right, that's a wrap for our deep dive into the original iPhone.
It's been a wild ride.
We've explored its history, its impact, its legacy.
We talked about the good, the bad, the ugly.
We've discussed its triumphs, its failures.
Its innovations and its limitations.
Hopefully we've given you a deeper appreciation for this iconic device.
This device that changed the world.
And maybe, just maybe, we've inspired you to go out there and create something revolutionary yourself.
I like that.
All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in, you magnificent bastards.
See you next time.
Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical.
And don't forget to charge your phones.
Peace out.